Welcome to the Extended Thoughts video on Journey. This is a companion video to my review of the game, so please watch that before watching this one. Or don't, because honestly this is just my extra thoughts on the game. Think of it like a post-commentary let's play, and I think these are really easy to put together. And starting with, man, every shot in Journey is like a wallpaper. I could hit pause and it's like I'm watching a movie. It has a really good opening sequence here that you can see. It just rushes you in, you see all this detail, and it's really incredible. I like the sand a lot, and I'm going to mention that a lot later on as well. It really does psych you up for something that's way bigger than it actually is. It's hard to describe. It's like the game's only an hour and maybe an hour and a half long, and so when you have this really spectacular opening sequence that just sort of hard cuts to you being like, oh, time to start the game, it's like, it's weird, and it crescendos quite well at the end though. When I stated that the game is low poly, that's because it is. I think I should always clarify things, but when I clarify things in a review too much, it's either I'm really bad at writing scripts, I think, or I think of something after I upload it. So the character is low poly, and the environment isn't. So with video games, they're all about optimization through memory management. Pretty much every game you play has to be like transcoded. So like things can be written in C#, but it's usually just transcoded to like C and C++. So depending on your hardware that you're building for, like how much RAM you have and like, you know, how much you can push the GPU, you might have to choose between having a high poly character in a low poly environment, or vice versa, or just kind of meet it in the middle. You know what I mean? There's always tricks to make your game more efficient. So if you're, I guess if you're a PC Master Race person, you can have both. You know, it's kind of like a have your cake and eat it too situation. But yeah, your character's low poly, but the world is high poly, which means that you can create areas that you can load into, and you can make them super immaculate in detail. And right here, you can see I went out of bounds immediately to show that the game is cleverly linear. So when I said in my review the world is massive, it really isn't, but it feels massive, and that's kind of cool. So it's a massive world, but it isn't. I think invisible walls, just as a side tangent on a video that's mine, a tangent is that invisible walls suck. They are super cheap in video games, and if you're a developer, like, I guess if you're forced to do it, do it. But if you can try to avoid it, avoid it. I'd rather have a wall that makes sensible, like sense, you know. So in Grand Theft Auto 4, the entire game takes place in New York City, but it's like New York City Island. So like the invisible wall is the ocean around you, and there's no other landmass. So the game goes on infinitely. But like in earlier Grand Theft Autos, there's like an invisible wall, or your character will just die. I forgot. But like in Skyrim, the invisible wall is just instant death. So I want people to have like logical barriers. So like if you're like in Far Cry, there's the invisible wall is literally giant mountains you can't get past. So it conveniently works, but like a brick wall is stupid. So in Journey, if you try to go out of bounds, the winds just gently push you back to the game, so you're not hitting like a solid surface. You know what I mean? Anyway, let's see. I right here, I like how seamlessly it goes to the title sequence when you get to the apex of this little hill. It feels very natural, and it reinforces your goal in the game. You're meant to ascend, literally and figuratively. So you're going up this little hill, and then you see a beacon of light, and it's like, oh, I just climbed a hill. Now I gotta climb that thing. So I figured that as I was walking through the sands, these things were gravestones. And I thought they were symbolic of other main characters, like we're a main character, right? So many people must have died or something, but then I thought there's no death in this game. So you can't die at all. I've tried. You can't die in this game. And even when you're attacked by like stone dragons in this game, nothing kills you. You just lose parts of your scarf, which you'll get it all back anyway at the end of the game. But yeah, I guess I'm just stupid. But you know, these things look like tombstones, right? It's just not me. Even though I praise this game for immaculate detail, like how am I supposed to fit this into a review? So right here, you can see that there is some low poly ruins, because I don't know if they meant for people to go here, but like look at this, like that looks like a Blender 101 tutorial. Like, that is a completely, like, 90-degree angle, like, thing here. So, yeah, they could have added more textures, but that's just nitpicking. And, like, no one's gonna notice that or care. So, I just thought I'd bring it up just to show it. But yeah, the world's very high detail, but then there's stuff that isn't if you want to nitpick. But yeah, the lighting effects and the colors that they use, they're just really good. The first part is just basic tan, like brown sand, but when we see the next area, which is this pink sand, it has this, basic color theory. It's complemented with a green sky. So it's got a good watermelon coloration. And if I want to, people call me out for this being like, oh, you read too much into things, but fine. It gives a sense of life, okay? The coloration of red and green is meant to symbolize, unity, because they come together. Like blue and orange go together, yellow and purple go together, red and green go together. Look on a color wheel, that's what complements each other. That's what interior designers do. So when you have red and green together, green is life, red is passion. It's meant to represent passionate life. So you go in here and the first thing that you see are what I call the little dragon carpets, little dragon cloths. And it's the first real semblance of sentient life. The first part has these weird floating fabric pieces that you're not sure are alive or not, but they're meant to be like birds. These things are much bigger and are clearly guiding you. So pink and green, they really do go together really well as a soft coloration beginning, because this is a tutorial level, and I think this is probably my favorite early level in a video game. It's not technically a tutorial because the tutorial happened instantly, but it just has this softness to it that I really like. You're learning all the mechanics here, like flying, sliding, humming, and the central goal is right in front of you. It establishes everything perfectly without a single word of dialogue or text. Now, the game does have a text box in the beginning, like how to look around with the camera and how to jump. But yeah, it just does a lot of things right. I like Journey for that. And I think that's kind of a silly way to say things, but I like Journey for what it does right. And it does a lot of things right. There are still games out there that just don't immerse you like Journey does. And I'm looking on my shelf right now, and there's just nothing really there builds this sense of ambience or ambiance. There's also no ugly UI. There's no tutorial that rams it down your throat that you have to do this or you can't advance. It's just really chill, and I like that a lot. So this tower we climb is an example of what I was talking about in my review. Like, I feel like I'm controlling a character that knows more than me. Like, I'm climbing this tower, and like, why? And it isn't until you hit the top where you're like, oh my god, there's a bunch of dragon cloths in there I have to free. And like, you have no idea what you're doing. Like, I don't even know what this tower does in terms of the universe. I get that it's a prison, but is it like a factory? Like, it seems to be like clicking back and forth, and I if I were to read up on this game, I'd learn more, but just games should explain themselves as you play them. I think with video games, that sense of curiosity is what drives you to keep playing. I've said this before, it's not a long game, it's an hour. And I think Edge magazine said that they were sad it was only a quote-unquote few hours long. I hate when reviewers say that games are too short or too long. It's like, that's completely based on your own ability to play a game. Cuphead is a really hard game, right? It's like, took me 27 hours to beat it, but like, if you suck at video games. But yeah, like, a game is as long as it has to be, alright? Like, if Journey was somehow like a 50-hour game, does that make it better? Like, objectively, if you made games longer, like, does that make them better? No, it's just a dumb comment. I guess you could say it was over faster than I thought it would be. Like, I wish it was longer. Not, it's only a few hours long. It just seems kind of dumb. And I feel like an hour and a half is me being very generous. Like, I was goofing off, and I beat this game in an hour and 15 minutes. You really have to try to get that hour and 30 minutes, that emphasis on the 30 part. So the reward in this game is moving forward, and I said in my review, dynamic music is awesome. Every game should do that. because it's just awesome. It's like an if-else statement. If you do this, or like if 50% health of a boss, clicks in, change the music. I think Dark Souls does that. It's really good. But yeah, Journey has this very orchestral, beautiful music that just kicks in right when it has to, and I just love it. The high point of this game, without a doubt, is sand surfing. I love sand, and it doesn't even make sense logically. Like as I'm cruising through the sands, like how is the sand still falling indefinitely? It doesn't really make any sense, but it looks cool. That's the beauty of animation and video games. Like you can have these beautiful worlds that seem realistic, but like if you just take 2 seconds to think about it, like why? I guess it's just that primitive part of my brain when it comes to video games. Like seeing something move really fast is just fun to see. And yeah, like there is a resistance to it. As you move left and right, it feels like a struggle to move, but it feels realistic as you're sliding with your, I don't know, Aegis level feet. Like you have really pointy feet. The amount of orange and lighting effects you see during this one scene right here, this one sand surf, is crazy. It's still, like, to this day, one of the most beautiful things I've seen in gaming. It's something you can't even really appreciate as you're playing. And that's weird, right? But think about it. Because it's happening so fast, like if you watch this again, you'll notice those little details, like cloth creatures flying in the background and those buildings. But your eyes are drawn to reflective sand because it's shiny, right? Like we're primitive. We look at shiny sand, not the little details. But like a Miyazaki film, if you like pause the movie in a Miyazaki film, you'll notice all these small little details, and you're like, oh my god, like the animators like putting in more work than they had to, because I was focused on the main character talking, but if I looked in the background, oh, something was happening. It's those little touches that show dedication, and which I really appreciate. And I liken this sand right here to glitter. It's so reflective and pretty. And that'll change when it gets to snow. Snow sucks. Sand is great. Sand is top tier. And you think I'm joking. Sand is awesome because it transitions well with colors, like orange into purple into blues. Like earlier it was pink, right? There's so much life that you could have with sand. But snow is white. And white is death. But that is getting ahead of myself. When we get to the water stage, this whole creativity hits you full swing. It's like, I know this isn't water, I should have rephrased that, but come on. Like, there's floating fragments of sand and light particles, and there's like, obviously, seaweed and jellyfish. Like, that's a water level. Like, it makes sense. But all you have to do is just change the slider on an asset to make it blue, and it looks like this, and that's really cool to me. When we're introduced to the stone dragons here, these things are legitimately scary, and the room is so dark that you get this primitive fear of the unknown and darkness and all that good stuff that's just playing. Like, again, like, you are this tiny thing, and these giant stone dragons, they will destroy you. There's no contest, right? I think it's something very primitive, like very primordial to us, that big things are scary, especially big things in the dark. So you're this small little dude, and they're this giant guy. So you really feel weak, but games can make you feel really good about yourselves when you take down big monsters, right? Like Monster Hunter, Dark Souls, Shadow of the Colossus. Like you kill these giant monstrosities and you feel accomplished. But these stone dragons, there's no way to do it. You're just having to run away from them. And that's really cool. I like enemies that you're not allowed to defeat everything, So I like that. You have to just play around them. There's also this looming fear, or looming feeling of doom that never quite leaves. These dragons are like teased as killers, and it's really good build-up for them. You get to see them kill like a cloth dragon, and you get to see them kill a lot of those like scrap, like they represent birds, right? They're little scraplings of cloth, and you're like, that could be me. But remember, you can get hit by these dragons like 100 times and not die, so it's totally fine. Let's see. I really like the tower part. It has a natural progression to it of hopping to the next platform, and the motif of water is really put in full display here, as you get to see like a cloud that looks like a water level raise higher and higher, and it gives you a sense of freedom with unlimited flight. Like, that's just a nice touch. Flight up until this point was limited, and it really didn't even serve a purpose. So being able to just move around freely with infinite flight, it was nice. This part also uses good coloration and lighting to its benefit. So it starts off like a dark brown and low lighting, which gives you the sense of antiquity and age. Like someone hasn't been in this building for hundreds of years. The browns become lighter with shade because we're introducing, light and life to this area. And I really like that. It shows that we are a positive influence in the world. The final act of this game is the mountain itself, and we are now dealing with snow. And like I said before, snow sucks. Snow is not the same as sand. It will kill you, and it just ruins you. So when we're introduced to the level, we walk in and we get this hard contrast to the life that we just had. Like, we invigorated a tower with all this life and saw so many dragons and stuff. We got to surf on a dragon. That was cool. But now our brethren are dead in the snow, and remember, their red is the same red as us. So if we're not careful, we can end up just like them. And you might. Which is the case as we get higher and higher up this mountain. The snow is no joke. The one thing that we know as a constant is our red figure, and as you're seeing, that red figure is being tarnished and ruined by the snow. Like, as I'm ascending more and more, that beautiful red that we start with this game is becoming like this weird brown and muck. It's just kind of a sad thing to see. As we walk around more, we see more sentient life. So when we see one little dragon friend come by us, it lifts our spirits. That feeling of not being alone kicks in, because we have a friend. But we also hear another familiar sound, and that's the sound of those stone dragon bastards that we saw earlier. I guess you have to take the good with the bad, right? There's this little reprieve from the storm, like this little shrine that you can reinvigorate yourself. Like, you can become fully red, and you're like, yay, I'm back to normal. And then you go out, and you're immediately screwed by the snow again. So it's like, why'd you even put this here? It was to show you that, you could have just stayed back and not continued. And I wish more games kind of did this, like little areas that you can like heal up and then kind of go back out. Like, I get it, like Pokemon, for example, has like Nurse Joy. But like, I mean like a small little alcove just to stop. And like a natural progression of going forward, like really good adventure games. I think Dragon Age does that. You just keep playing the game and you can take a pit stop and then you keep going forward. Like natural pit stops. Anyway, once we get near the top, we're getting injured from strong winds, and this part of the game is kind of morose, if I'm being serious. Strong winds, we're getting our vision obscured, snow is just battering us, and you can't even tell which way is up, and you're like, my character can barely walk. So you're really getting that sense of like, I'm getting pounded here. So it's just really a harsh segment. And then your character basically dies. They keel over, and then the game crescendos. We get to go Super Saiyan, we get to punch right through those storm clouds, and then we get to get right to the top of that mountain, and it's beautiful. This is the apex of the game. This is right at the peak of like storytelling, and then we're gonna have a falling action and resolution, and we're gonna get to the end of the game. And the top of the mountain is it's awesome. It's beautiful. It's got these yellow light particles everywhere. You get to see a lot of your cloth friends and brethren, and you get to swim and fly with them. And it just feels like a warm hug. I don't know, like, we were dealing with snow and ice up until now, but now you're seeing at the top of the mountain, there's like waterfalls and stuff. So it feels like, it doesn't make sense as you get to the higher points of the mountain, right? But it's super cold, but now it feels warm. And that's the beauty of video games. And then it becomes somber. So like, you're flying with all your friends, and then you gently land at the end of the game, which is the top of the mountain, and you're walking towards the light. You're doing it by yourself, so it's kind of sad. Like, you were flying so nice with all your friends, and now you're just gently placed down, you have to walk into the light. And then you realize the game's over. Then you walk in, and then the game resets. Hope you enjoyed your journey.